minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again. It is time for Out of the Tunnel. We are here to get you ready for Week 12 of college football. It's already so sad that we're already down to 2 weeks left in the college football season, but we still have a lot to talk about today, and a lot of huge matchups to get to, and we'll make sure to get you ready for Week 12. Let's start off today over on the transfer portal side. Obviously, the transfer portal has become a very integral part of the college football landscape today. Colorado completely rebuilt their roster through the transfer portal. So my question to everybody today is, who do you think was the best addition or the most valuable player added to a team through the transfer portal this season? Slade, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I went with DJ Uyunglele at Oregon State. I think that he was. What did I jack that up or was
No,
it
no,
close?
you got it. I'm,
Okay,
I'm just very proud
I
you
had
got it
it.
right.
Okay, I had it kind of written out in sections. Um, but I mean, we have talked about it. He needed to go to a place where they kind of had a little bit more structure around him. It seemed like everyone was against him last season at Clemson,
Right.
especially at the end of the season when they benched him for their quarterback now. But I think that on the season, he has 2,200 yards. He's averaging like 300 yards a game. So just after today, if he averages that same thing, he'll get his career high in yards. If he does his average today, he'll also have his career high in touchdowns. Um, so I just think that the transfer definitely helped him as a player individually. He's going to put up his career high numbers this season today, probably, and if not next week, most likely against Oregon. But I think that what he's been able to do there, he's definitely played a big part in Oregon State's offensive production. They have been able to go from I feel like they were more of like a run offense beforehand, and now they're able to kind of open the ball up on both sides. One thing I will say is at the beginning of the season, it seemed like they were having him kind of do a run pass option a lot. They've definitely calmed that down a lot because he only has 55 carries in the season compared to at Clemson last year. I think he had like 133 carries. Um, so I think that they're just kind of looking out and treating him as if he's going to go to the NFL after this. But right now they're using him while they need him. I just think that it's crazy that he transferred. He's close to 60% completion rating. He's averaging 470 passing yards against top 25 teams, along with 3 touchdowns. I just thought that of all the transfers, quarterback wise, it was probably him or Shador Sanders that I was going to pick, and so I went with DJ.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really great pick, DJ. Like you said, he has added another element to that offense. For years and years, Oregon State was basically a running offense, and we try and sprinkle in the pass. And this year, it's a much more balanced attack, and that's propelled them to be one of the best teams in college football. And it also exposed a lot of the issues at Clemson because, again, like you said, last year everybody pointed the finger at DJ as to why Clemson struggled. They even brought in a new offensive coordinator, and that offense is still struggling this season, and they still don't look the best. So it was a win-win for both Oregon State and DJ to get out of there. Nick, who's your pick for the season?
Yeah, so obviously we could have went a lot of ways in this. I ended up going with Fentrell Cypress the second. He's a big reason that Florida State finds themselves in the college football playoff conversation. While I don't think he's the best corner in the country, um, the ability to pick up a guy from the transfer portal and know that one side of your defense is going to be protected that's huge for a defensive coordinator. Especially, we've seen throughout the season, Florida State's had their struggles on both sides of the ball. And I feel like he's been consistent. Yeah, he's given up some plays. I mean, when you're playing at a high collegiate level, you're going to give up some plays. But like I said, to be able to pick somebody up and know that that side of the field is in good hands, that's huge for a team, and that's going to help them obviously here in these next couple weeks, especially if they go on to the playoffs.
Yeah. My pick is also from Florida State. I went with Keon Coleman. I think he's been one of the most electric wide receivers in college football. He doesn't have the most flashy stats. He's not leading in yards, touchdowns, or anything like that. But when he is on the field, you can see a noticeable shift in the Florida State offense. It's just another weapon for them to add out. So Jordan Travis has another outlet. I mean, their running game was already one of the best in the country. And now you add, a wide receiver that can go out and make ridiculous one-handed grabs that can pull defenders to him once he starts to get hot, and then they have other outlets to go from there. He has really opened up this Florida State offense. I am really like the fact that Michigan State underutilized him so much is just kind of exemplifies how much of a mess that program is right now. But he's found his home at Florida State, and he has been excelling on the field. One of the best wide receivers in college football. I mean, if he took better care of his diet, he might be the best. He wouldn't have to go out every 5 plays with a cramp. But I went with Keon Coleman for my best transfer portal player, or the player with the biggest impact so far this season. Um, this past week, James Madison and Jacksonville State applied for a postseason eligibility waiver to be exempted from the probationary rule for them moving up from FCS to the FBS level. That waiver was denied. A lot of people are very upset about the NCAA and that decision, as we are. I will say the video that our friend Rico Knows made, kind of explaining why the rule exists, and there have been schools in the past that have made this jump and it didn't work out, and it's because they didn't have the financial backing. Um, at the end of the day, though, we are still pretty upset about it. But Nick, you want to talk more about this?
Yeah, so we've made a couple TikToks. Everybody's talked about it. So I'll keep what I have to say pretty short and sweet. Like you said, Rico explained why the rules are there and whatnot. But the way I see it is, if unless the NCAA says that you're not postseason eligible because of a cheating scandal, I think that you should be allowed to play to some extent in some form of postseason, even if it's some low hanging bowl. Whatever the situation may be, I'm not going to call any out 'cause I don't want to talk shit on any bowl games here. Um, but you should be some form of postseason eligible. Like JMU, for example, sitting at 10-0 right now. Yeah, I've seen our TikTok comments. Oh, who have they played? I don't care who you play. To win 10 games in a row in any form of football, and unless you're Alabama playing FCS schools 10 weeks in a row, um, it's impressive, and you deserve to get some sort of recognition for it. And obviously, JMU's the big one here, but Jacksonville State, I think they deserve it too. But we're getting robbed of that. The players are getting robbed of that because again, these are college kids doing something that they love. A lot of these players, especially when we talk about JMU, Jacksonville State, some of them might get a shot in the NFL, but more than likely, these guys aren't going to be NFL players. You're talking seniors, they deserve a chance at one more game to say, "Hey, look, we deserve to be in this game." You know, we played our asses off throughout the season, and you're robbing that from us because we just moved up. I think that's
Mhm.
a dumb rule. I understand why it's there, but again, these players deserve to play in it, and we as fans deserve a chance to watch them prove that JMU, for example, and the people saying they haven't played anybody. We as fans deserve a chance for them to play somebody, so we can see what they're actually made of.
I,
Slade, any thoughts?
yeah, I did want to say. So I saw JMU's head coach go on the ESPN show yesterday at their school and everything, and so he had basically said like we've done what nobody else has done in the first 2 year period. We jumped. We scheduled all FBS teams. We're 10-0. We have the financial backing. We're not looking for a one-off season to get this in and then for it to look like, oh, they made the wrong decision. JMU's 4-10 next year. Whatever the deal would be. Um, I I see their reasoning and stuff like that, but I also see that like even if you make them eligible and it's like for a low hanging bowl, like Nick had said, it's never going to be enough. Say they run the table and go 12-0 on the season, they beat Appalachian State this week and then Coastal Carolina next week, and they're 12-0. I don't think you can necessarily put them in one of those low hanging bowls because they're the best team of that non-power five, and so I just think that it's a difficult situation. I think that, like he had said, they were hoping that the same person that kind of stepped up and voiced their opinion after the ruling was made of some of the ineligible players earlier in the season, that person then ruled opposite, and those players were able to play. Then they were really hoping that the same person kind of stepped up and did the same thing, but it might go a couple years and then another team wants to do the same thing and they have to do the same thing even though this team's definitely not ready, and so I think either they have to get rid of the rule completely and no matter whether you're ready or not, everyone's eligible, or it has to stay the same way, and it's just tough for JMU and Jacksonville State, like you guys were saying. And I mean, honestly, I think that it's going to be difficult for them because I think they lose one of these last two games of the season against either Appalachian State or Coastal Carolina. I think they're both going to be close, like their game with Troy, and I think it's going to end up going against them in one of these games. And so the NCAA is going to be like, "See, we told you weren't ready." And even though they'll still get to their conference championship, they'll be able to play Troy again, probably beat them, whatever the deal is. But I just think that it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're the NCAA right now, after you made the ruling.
Yeah. I mean, just my two thoughts on it is first with the NCAA, it's just so comical that we always see them. They try and do the right thing, and I get that at times, but the amount of backlash they get with a lot of these decisions, and we've talked about a lot of them before. Um, to have a layup win like this. Now both teams are going to be postseason eligible in football next year, and all the other sports are already obviously there and so on. But this far into your football season, they have proven where I mean if they suddenly turn around and they fall in financial hard times and completely fall apart, they have to scrap sports programs. That's something far outside of just adding 22 scholarships and the extra resources and so on. This late in the season, the people gifted the NCAA a layup win and just prove this, and this will be you'll get on our good side. We'll show you a lot more faith. Instead, they deny this waiver. They have the rules and so on and so forth. And now, again, in the eyes of the public, is they've made the wrong decision, and they've upset a lot of people. And you had Pat McAfee yesterday berating the NCAA on his show for about 20 minutes, and rightfully so. And so now, in the eyes of public, or eyes in the eyes of the public, you're now enemy number one again. So it's just kind of I chuckle when I see that because I'm like, we're gifting you a layup win. Just bring it home, and we'll think favorably of you again. And they couldn't do that. But then back to James Madison, and again, I understand why the rule is there. I just proposed the simple rule change of once you declare that you want to make that move, you stay at the FCS level for football, and you stay there for your 2 years of probation or whatever the rule may be. I think you should still be eligible for FCS postseason, all this other stuff. But that money that's supposed to go towards the extra scholarships, the extra resources, like more teacher or professors, all the trainers, all that stuff that needs to be added is you have to show for 2 years that you can financially save that money. Let's put that in a pot for that 2 years, and it sits there. And we're audited constantly by the NCAA. They come in, they make sure this account's real, they make sure the money's in that account. It sits there for 2 years. We get to play football. If we're really good, we get to go to the playoffs, so on and so forth. 2 years is up. Hey, you're passed. You're approved. You got all that money. You can now move to the FBS level. And now your school has all of this money. You can use it to pay for the scholarships and stuff right away. You can use it for upgrades at different, facilities and stuff. I feel like that's a fair trade-off. Is we prove that we can financially sustain ourselves to make this jump, and we're not punishing the kids because the kids aren't the ones choosing that. Hey, we want to jump up and play the FBS level. And now for 2 seasons, especially James Madison, they've been robbed of the chance to play for a conference title, to play in a bowl game, or even, like I said, stay at the FCS level and again play for a national championship there, and so on and so forth. And that's the issue I kind of take with this whole thing is, yeah, as fans, yeah, it sucks that we can't, sit there and James Madison fans or Jacksonville State fans can't cheer their team on in a bowl game or the conference championship game. But the kids who busted their asses for the entire season get nothing. Oh, we went 12-0 this year, 10-2, whatever the record ends up being, and now we're just gonna go home and sit. The seniors are done. They'll probably never play down a football again in their lives, so on and so forth. That's kind of what I take the most issue with out of this entire thing. Is everybody's looking, well, the schools need to, so on and so forth. That's fair. The kids who, signed up to come to James Madison and were supposed to only play FCS level, made that jump, and now they're kicking ass at the FBS level, have to go home and sit, and they can't really do anything. That's kind of where I took the biggest issue with everything. You look like you want to say something, Slade. So
I understand your frustration with that, but they're also getting a ton more TV time with the jump to these games than they would have if
I
they were
agree.
playing FCS teams for 2 years. They have a much better chance of making it to the NFL or the Canadian Football League or the whatever, Rocks Football League, with the last 2 seasons of playing on national television versus FCS teams.
All right, so let's move on. So we have a bunch of 5-5 teams. Then after last night, we have a 5-6 team as well. So a lot of these teams are very close, but at the same time, still very far away from making a bowl game. So Slade wanted us to list the teams that we thought that are at this mark that will miss out on a bowl game. Slade, since it's your topic, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, so I went with Minnesota here. Being as though that they're 5-5, they play Ohio State this weekend. It's no surprise they're going to be 5-6 after this game. And then next week to end the season, they're at home against Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin hasn't been having the greatest season either, but I do think that Wisconsin's going to be able to get it done against them, and so I think that they are the team that is so close, but not going to get it done here at the end of the season. Just because they kind of were middle of the road all season. They never really showed that they were going to be able to turn the corner and and really perform. So I think that they put themselves in this situation, but it's unfortunate for them.
Nick, your pick.
Yeah, so I chose BYU. Their 2 games left are today at home versus Oklahoma, and next week at Oklahoma State. Those are 2 easily losable games for the Cougars, and barring any wild changes to the opposing teams, I have them losing both those games, finishing the season at 5-7 on the outside looking in when it comes to bowl season.
I cheated. I took a couple here. So first up, with this happened after last night. Washington State just stomped Colorado at home, and so now they're at 5-6. But looking at that upcoming record, their final game is at Washington. I don't see Washington State winning that, and it's really a shame because Washington State started off 4-0. They look like one of the best teams in the Pac-12. As soon as they hit Pac-12 play, they didn't win another game until last night. So that's really disappointing for Washington State, especially Cam Ward, who at the beginning of the season looked like a Heisman contender, was playing some of the best football we've seen him play in his career. We thought, hey, maybe this Washington State team is revitalized, and then they just completely fell flat on their face. My other 2 picks, one is the layup. I was really expecting one of you guys to take. You didn't, so I just put it in here. And that's Florida, sitting at 5-5 right now. They started the season 5-2, 3-game win streak, and now they have to go to Missouri and play Florida State at home. 2 very difficult games for them to pick up a win to get to a bowl game. And then we're looking. My other pick is Boise State. They're at Utah State this week. They do not play well on the road. They've also just fired their head coach. And then they had to play Air Force at home. Air Force is a team that we were all very high on to start the season. They've kind of struggled the past couple of weeks. But I think there's going to be a lot on the line for that Air Force Boise State game. So I expect Air Force to be up for that. So it's not impossible, but a very tough road for Boise State ahead. And therefore, it's you're so close but so far away. Our game of the week this week, we have SMU at Memphis. This is a huge matchup in the American. If SMU wins, they essentially punch their ticket to the American Championship game as long as they win out next week against Navy, because UTSA and Tulane will play each other next week. And so whoever wins that game, as long as Tulane takes care of business this week, will be undefeated and punch their ticket to the American Championship game. So a lot on the line. Memphis trying to keep their hopes alive as well with that early season loss to Tulane. The all-time record is Memphis is 10-5 against SMU. SMU did win last year, 34-31. But as always, I want to get your guys' keys to the game. And what do you think is going to make the biggest impact? Nick, we'll go to you.
Yeah, for SMU, the key is offensive production. Their defense is allowing just 16.4 points per game, and the offense is scoring 40.5 points per game. In their two losses this season, they scored 11, which they allowed 28. That was against Oklahoma, and 17, and they allowed 34 in that game. That was against TCU. The key to this team's success on any given Saturday is moving the ball, keeping the defense fresh, so they can lock teams up, and then obviously scoring points. For Memphis, it's the defensive stops. The defense is allowing 28.9 points per game. The offense is scoring 39.7. When you're playing against a team that's putting up 40 points a game, just like you are, the defense is going to have to come up with some key stops throughout the game in order to avoid turning the game into an absolute shootout. Because SMU's defense is going to come up with those key stops throughout the game. So you got to make sure that your defense is doing the same to keep up with them.
Slade, your keys to the game today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Nick had said, Memphis defense, I think definitely has to perform today. The only other thing I would add is Hennigan, Memphis QB. He really needs to, when the game is on the line, when it's really close because their defense isn't able to pick up those stops, he can't be making the mistakes. I mean, it seems like every time that they're put in the position to be able to pull away in a game, he throws a pick or fumbles the ball. And so it's just, he really needs to focus on playing a really great game and not missing opportunities and giving opportunities, I guess, to SMU's offense.
Yeah. Both of you made great points there. The only one I would add is it's supposed to be a little sloppy today in Memphis. They're calling for some rain. So I think establishing the run game. Memphis, I feel like, has the stronger run game coming in here. SMU is a very pass heavy offense. So whoever can establish that run game and really set the precedent going forward, I think is going to have the most success today if the weather does stay ugly. Preston Stone and Seth Hennigan are some of the best quarterbacks in the FBS that nobody really talks about because everybody focuses on the Power Five QBs. But these are two guys that can sling it. I'm excited to see them match up. Hopefully it's not the worst weather game that we've seen this season, and these guys get that opportunity. But I really feel like whoever can establish the run game and reinforce that with the weather is going to have the most success today. It's time now for our cash out picks. Let's go ahead and look at the updated records. I have not only fallen below 500, but I am really struggling here. 12, 15, and 1. Nick, you are back in front with 14 and 13. And Slade, you sit at 8, 17, and 1, just 1 and 1 in your way through the last couple weeks. So we're going to hope to turn it around this week. Nick, let's get your picks first.
Yeah, so up first, I got UNC plus 7.5. This UNC versus Clemson game, whether it's in North Carolina, at North Carolina or at Clemson, it always seems to be a fun game. And I feel like these teams are more even than this touchdown or slightly over touchdown spread suggests. I like this to be a close one, so I like UNC to cover here. And then I debated on using this phrasing because every time we use it, we're sitting alongside the highway. But Iowa under until the wheels fall off, baby.
Slade, your picks?
Yeah, so I went with Duke. I think at -3 or 3.5 against a really bad Virginia team is something that even with a backup, they should really be able to do. I am hopeful that that's my win for a 1-1 week again, but Georgia hopefully can get it done on their side as well against Tennessee. I think 10-point spread is kind of pitiful that's all they've given them against Tennessee, who's been horrible, especially because I could see Milton throwing 3 interceptions in this game. Georgia has just flipped that switch like 2-3 weeks ago, and ever since they're just going to be not coasting, but I think they're out there trying to show that they're the number 1 team in the nation, and that's the pick. That's where they should be come playoff time.
My picks this week. First up, I went with FAU plus 9.5 at home against Tulane. Tulane has really struggled the past couple of weeks for a team that's supposed to be kind of putting their foot down, saying we're the best team in the American, the best group of 5 team to get back to New Year's Six Bowl. They have really struggled against a lot of subpar opponents. FAU, this is going to be their senior day. They're also fighting to still make a bowl game. They sit there at 4-6, so they need to win out. They need to come out and have an impressive performance. Again, with Tulane really just struggling the past couple weeks, they played some of the worst teams in college football. Eastern Carolina, they only beat them by 3 points. They blew a lot of big leads. They were up 28-7 in one game, 35-7 in another game, and it ended up being close victories. This Tulane team is giving me a lot of concerns. So I like FAU at home plus 9.5 to cover that. My other pick is Maryland plus 19. I have been harping on this all season. This game, after the Penn State game, before Ohio State for Michigan, is a huge chance for a letdown. I've talked about it a lot of times before. Last season, when Ohio State played at Maryland the week before the Michigan game, I said it then. Um, this always seems to be the game that trips these two teams up, or at least they don't look the best the entire game. And I think again, coming off that huge emotional win at Penn State last weekend, kind of adds a little bit to that. So I like Maryland to cover this 19-point spread at home. So those are our cash out picks. It's time now for our upset alert picks. Let me pull that back up. Sorry. And we'll look at the updated upset alert standings. Nick, you still lead the way with 8 points. I have 7 points. Slade, you got 2. So you got 3 weeks left to make some noise here and tie Nick. So let's go ahead and look at our upset alert picks for this week. Slade, we'll have you go first.
Yeah, so kind of like Nick's cash out pick, I'm thinking that I don't know how Clemson has moved to now 8-point favorites in this game against UNC, and I just think it's pretty crazy. I think that UNC lost to Virginia late in late in October, and then they lost to Georgia Tech the next week. Then they had an easy game against Campbell. Sorry, Zurich, but then they go at home against Duke in overtime win. I realistically think that they're able to win their last 4 games in the state of North Carolina here. Campbell, Duke, Clemson this week, and then NC State the last weekend. I think that – what's that? What did I say?
Clemson's in South Carolina.
Oh, shit. Sorry. In the Carolinas. But, yeah, so I just think that I think they're able to go 4-0 to end the season here after 2 games losing against teams that they really shouldn't have lost against. I mean, Virginia especially and Georgia Tech, I think that they should have been able to win there, but – they just had a lot of missed opportunities. So I think that UNC upsets Clemson today.
Nick, your pick?
Yeah, I'm going with sorry, I don't have it written here. Thank you for having that up top. Kansas State -10. I couldn't remember what the line was. At Kansas. With this game being in Memorial Stadium, I think that Kansas not only has a great opportunity to cover, but if they play to their full potential, they definitely have a chance for the full upset here. I would really enjoy the 2 points, help extend my lead a little bit. Not that I need it, but it's always nice to feel good about myself because my picks will probably go 5-5, or I don't know. I didn't count how many picks we had, but as close to even as possible, if not even. So I enjoy getting the upset picks right when I can.
My upset pick this week. So I have 2, but one is for points. The other one is just one that I brought up all season. The one I brought up all season is the Michigan-Maryland game. I've said that was going to be my upset alert, and then I've slowly watched this situation develop, and I was like, knowing this history, I'm going to go with this one. So I'm with Oregon on the road at Arizona State. They're 24.5-point favorites. The amount of times Oregon has traveled to the desert to play either Arizona or Arizona State with playoff hopes on the line, Pac-12 title hopes on the line, and just falling flat on their face, I would have a lot of nickels if that happened. So a lot of Oregon fans already talking trash, already moving on to not even looking at Oregon State either. They're already talking about the Washington rematch. There's a long road to get there. So with everything kind of boiling into this, I am concerned, very concerned for this game. So I'm going to put my own team on upset alert this week on the road at Arizona State. Time now for our game picks. We have a lot of games to get through today. So let's go ahead and look at the updated standings. Slade, you have opened up a 6-game lead over me, still 2 games ahead of Nick. Nick, we talked about this on our Thursday podcast. We just want to get kind of your opinion here. So you're 2 games back. Both of those games are essentially the Penn State games. Do you regret it at all, or are you proud that you stuck with your team and went?
No, listen. So I've talked about this before. Usually, when I pick my team, especially in these Ohio State Michigan games, I usually state, yeah, we have a chance to win this or whatever. I give my respect to my teams. I don't come out there and trash talk and say, oh yeah, we're definitely the better team. We're definitely going to win this. Yada yada. I'm not exaggerative about it. I'm very humble about it. So no, I don't regret it. Yeah, I could be tied with Slade in the standings had I picked those 2 games. But I could be tied with Slade or ahead of Slade if I had picked 2 other games or more than 2 other games differently. So no, I don't regret it at all. I'm going to stand by my team as much as James Franklin pisses me off. they're still my team. I'm not going to change that. I'm still a Washington fan, for God's sake. So it is what it is. Sometimes sometimes you're not a fan of the best team, and it happens.
It's all right. So let's go ahead and we'll move into this week's picks. So first up, we have Michigan at Maryland. This will be the big noon kickoff game. So please load. There we go. Nick, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, as much as like you said, Maryland always seems to trip these teams up when it comes to the penultimate week of the season, and Michigan and Ohio State. I still like Michigan's chances to win. They're still um, leaps and bounds better than Maryland on paper, on the field. I expect Maryland to make this interesting at the very least for a half. They might even keep it close due to the fact that it's at home. Um, but Maryland just doesn't have a team to win this.
Slade?
I think that Maryland played against Ohio State, lost 31-10 or 11 or something like that. They played Penn State, lost 51-10 or 11. I think that Maryland goes out and just runs the ball for 400 yards against them today. And I think that they don't let McCarthy throw the ball until he plays Ohio State. I think if you don't have to do it, why do it? I mean, they didn't have to throw the ball against Penn State, and they beat them handedly. So they should be able to do the same and open up like a 20-point spread against Maryland today.
I'm going to go with Big Blue as well. As much as I would like to see the upset, one, I'm not going to throw a pick away here when I'm 6 games back. And two, I think Maryland can keep it close, but like Nick said, I don't think
the
they have
first
the
half.
talent to beat Michigan. I think they keep it close throughout the whole game. That's why I took it as my cash out. But at the end of the day, they don't have the talent. And even if Michigan's struggling, they have the players to rely on to kind of pull them through and get the win on the road. So give me Michigan. Next game up we have is where College Game Day went today. We have Appalachian State at James Madison, 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Nick, who do you got in this?
Yeah, I got JMU. I think that this one, if this was in Appalachian State, I'd be a little more concerned. But I think that JMU has the team to finish the season undefeated. Not saying they will. We'll see how this game looks going in the next week. But I like JMU right now. It's at home. They're going to be upset and mad because they didn't get their waiver granted. They feel like they're one of the best teams in the country, and I'm not necessarily saying they are, but until somebody beats them, um, having that confidence goes a long way, especially in your home. So I like JMU.
Slade.
A lot of the same reasons is why I picked against them in Appalachian State today is who I'm going with. I think that JMU is going to be very upset that their waiver did not get granted. I think that this is going to cause them to play with their hearts instead of their head, and I think that there could be some bad penalties that end up proving to be the difference in this game. I think that I don't know whether it's QB run out of bounds and they push him afterwards and it's 15-yard penalty. Whatever the deal is, I think that they're going to be too much heart in this game, and it's going to end up hurting them.
Appalachian State is on a hot streak right now. They've won their last couple in a row in big fashion too. They've got their ticket punched to the bowl season, and they're not out of the East race in the Sun Belt Division either. With that being said, I'm taking James Madison at home. I think them being at home kind of makes a bigger difference, like Nick said, and I just really like the way this team is playing. Last week their defense played stellar, and then their offense finally felt like it broke through in a big way. And it seems like they're both sides of the football are clicking right now for them. And again, I think there's going to be an emotional aspect to this game, but they have one of the best head coaches in college football, and I really feel like he can not only get that emotion under control, but help them direct that in the proper way, and that makes a huge difference as well. So I like James Madison at home, and I think with the environment there, obviously with game day and all this other stuff going on, I think it's going to kind of up it another level per se. Next game we have number 1 Georgia Bulldogs on the road at number 18 Tennessee Volunteers, 3:30 on CBS. Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm taking Georgia. I think that they've finally found their groove as far as looking like the best team in the country, looking like the team that as far as at least the three of us have been looking for all season. They've gotten a lot of respect. A lot of people have said, "Oh no, Georgia's the clear number one." I haven't seen it until the last few weeks. Again, I think they finally found that. Tennessee, I don't think is the 18th best team in the country. Um, but obviously somebody does because they're ranked there. So I think Georgia handles this one. I don't want to say it's blowout, but relatively easily.
Slade.
I think Georgia wins this today. I think that it could be close, maybe 10-10, 14 something, halftime. But I think that Georgia comes out in the second half, and this might be something Kirby Smart learned from Nick Saban while he was at Alabama. But they turn it on in the third quarter. They're one of the best teams in the third quarter when it comes to their offensive scoring versus defensive stands out there. And so I think that Georgia's going to pull away in the second half, and I hope that they're able to break through that 10-point spread.
Yeah. No, the same exact point you just made. Tennessee sucks in the second half. Georgia's one of the best teams in the country in the second half. Tennessee really struggles on offense against a semi-competent defense. Their quarterback sucks. Their whole offense sucks. This whole team sucks. The fact that the number 18 is despicable. But it's just another padded resume patter for Georgia and Alabama, so that way they can make their claim for the playoff later in the season. But screw Tennessee. I can't stand them this year. I bought into the hype. They fell flat on their face. They don't deserve to be here. And I think Georgia runs them out of the building. Next game we have Illinois at number 16, Iowa. Speaking of overranked teams, 3:30 p.m. on FS1. Illinois has fought and clawed their way back in. They somehow still have a chance at the Big Ten West. A win today would obviously go a very long way in helping with that. Nick, who do you got in this?
I just want to say what a difference a year makes. Last year, George was singing Rocky Top, and now he hates Tennessee. So anyway, I'm going with Iowa. I'm this team. I don't know. I hate them. Can't stand them. They're terrible, but the defense is good. I keep picking them to hit the under. They keep doing that, and I keep picking them to win, and they keep doing that. So give me Iowa.
Slade.
Yeah, I think the winner today is Iowa's defense. I think that they're going to be able to really prove the difference, whether it's till the fourth quarter when Iowa can score. It won't matter because Iowa's defense will just hold Illinois off until their offense is able to push it in.
Yeah. I mean, I keep doubting Iowa every single week, and they find ways to win these games. I think this game being in Kinnick helps a lot too. But Iowa has one of the best defenses in the country. We see that year in and year out. Illinois has a lot of questions on offense. They found something with their backup quarterback the last few weeks. They've looked very, very good. I just don't think it's enough to overcome this staunch defense. And I like Iowa to just run the rock and keep the ball on the ground, run that clock down, and get out of there with a win. And if they win today, they punch their ticket to the Big Ten championship against Michigan or I almost said Iowa State, Michigan or Ohio State next week.
You're really excited for that one.
Yeah. Final score is going to be 13-10, and Iowa's only touchdown is defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Next game we got is one that we've already talked about is UNC at Clemson. This is going to be 3:30 on ESPN. Nick, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, so this one has me a little worried. So we haven't talked about it on this podcast, but in our notes here that we put down for us to make our game picks and whatnot, so George can do all his graphics, he started putting the Wheel of Destiny's picks in here. And this game, Iowa's still talking about Iowa. Clemson spread keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the Wheel of Destiny chose Clemson. So this has me slightly worried because the wheel ain't bad at its picks. But I'm going with UNC.
Slade, who do you got?
I'm going with UNC as well. I think that people saw Dabo Swinney get on TV after they beat Notre Dame and said to buy stock. And I think that everybody in the world bought stock because there's no reason that this should be an 8-point spread. This should be like a 3-point spread. I can see Clemson being the favorite, but I do not think it should be an 8-point favorite right now. And so I think for that, UNC is going to bring them down a notch today.
I'm going to go with Clemson. I think this game being in Death Valley helps a lot. Clemson plays very well at home. And ever since that Notre Dame game, this team has seemingly found a second gear. They looked very sloppy to start that game against Notre Dame a few weeks ago, or excuse me, Georgia Tech last week. They ran a fake punt inside their own 20 for some reason, turned the ball over, and Georgia Tech got a free touchdown. From that point on, Clemson just steamrolled Georgia Tech. And again, they've been looking better and better week over week. UNC has really hit some hard times here their last 3 games, losing to Virginia, Georgia Tech, and then they should have honestly lost that game to Duke last week. You know, the refs got involved and kind of gave UNC some extra life. So I like Clemson to kind of put the nail in the coffin for UNC's ACC title hopes today. And Clemson's thought is, hey, if we can't make it, you can't make it either. And I expect them to go out there and handle business at home against UNC on senior day, too. I'd also like to apologize to Clemson fans last week. They were a little upset with me because I was trashing them for storming the field after they beat Georgia Tech. I learned that they weren't storming the field. It's apparently tradition where all the fans go on the field after the game, and it's called Gather at the Paul. A few of them were upset in the comments last week, so I apologize and get over it.
A bit
Next game we
ridiculous.
got.
I'll keep pissing them off. A bit
Yeah.
ridiculous, but it's tradition. I got a slight
Yeah, I
understanding.
mean, we said this last. Clemson's apparently home to some of the worst traditions in college football, between running down the hill and
Yeah.
everybody storming the field after every single game.
Right.
Next game we got is possibly Chip Kelly's last ever game coaching at UCLA. They go on the road at USC, 3:30 p.m. on ABC. Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with USC. And speaking of possible last games, if I'm Caleb Williams, I wouldn't play another down of college football. I'd keep my NFL draft stock where it's at. I understand, you want to finish out the season for your team and whatnot, but I guess it's a little more difficult to say that now when you're getting millions of dollars in NIL deals. But if I were him, I'm looking at the possibility of more millions of dollars. I'd keep my draft stock where it is, but regardless, he's not going to do that. USC's at home. This is a difficult game to pick because I don't know what USC team is going to show up or what UCLA team is going to show up for that matter. But I got to go with USC.
Slade?
Yeah, I think this is a farewell to Caleb Williams. I think that he gets it done today. I think he shows he deserves to be that number one draft pick or wherever he ends up going. But
Pretty God, he's
it's
not.
what's that?
I
Pray to
said-
God he's
pretty
not.
God, he's
Yeah,
not the number
yeah,
one
yeah,
pick.
yeah. What do you got? 3 of the top 5 picks now or something? But yeah. So I just think that they've had a horrible end to these last 5 games of the season. 1 win in the last 5 games. They were 7-0 before that. Now
Mhm.
it's 6-0. Now they said it's 7-4. I think that Lincoln Riley just needs to do something with the defense, because what they've done to Caleb Williams and how people look at him now is just pitiful. I mean, the dude is still throwing for like 300 yards a game and doing his part, but if the defense gives up 50 points, it's really hard to go out there and win the game.
Yeah. I'm going to go with USC. Again, I believe this is Caleb Williams' last game. I don't think he plays in the bowl game. I'm also curious to see if this is Lincoln Riley's last game. Is he going to stick around? There's a lot of rumors about him possibly flipping over to the NFL, with the NFL kind of entering that age of let's just hire offensive gurus and let them go to town and run the team, essentially. So I'm curious to see that. Also, with all the rumors swirling around UCLA and this being Chip Kelly's last game, how does a team emotionally get ready to play this game? Obviously, they're going to want to go out there and win for their coach. But at the end of the day, there's way too many offensive questions for UCLA. The quarterbacks is obviously the biggest one. This is going to be a close game. It always is, but I see USC coming out on top. Um, let's go over back to the ACC. We have NC State at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, if they win today, they go to a bowl game. Somewhere that a lot of people didn't think they would be at this point in the season. So Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Virginia Tech. They've found some form of momentum here in the late half of the season. Playing for a bowl game, like you said, and that right there, plus home field advantage, I think is enough to give them the edge.
Nick or Slade? Sorry.
Yeah, so I went with NC State here. I think that you're going to hear Enter Sandman, and then that's going to be the last we see of the Hokies today. I think that it's just going to be a rough game. I think NC State has really turned it around. I mean, at the beginning of the season, George and I talked about how the team really wasn't doing all that great, and now all of a sudden they've showed up and they're willing to play. So I think that they do that again this week, and they show Virginia Tech that they'll have to wait another week.
I'm going to go with the Hokies. I think them being at home gives them a huge advantage. The crowd is going to be behind them, trying to basically will them to this victory. And also, I just cannot bring myself to trust Brennan Armstrong on the road in a hostile environment. Their true freshman QB decided to redshirt the rest of the season. Armstrong looked pretty good last week, but Wake Forest isn't that great of a team, and that game is at home. And now, again, they have to go on the road to Virginia Tech. I I can't pull myself together enough to believe that NC State can get it done. So give me the Hokies at home. Also, Virginia Tech with a very outside shot at making the ACC title game, but they have a lot on this game, so I'm going to go with the Hokies. Speaking about games with a lot on the line, we have UNLV at Air Force. We talked about this earlier. Air Force is kind of falling on hard times, losing back-to-back games to Army. Um, was that Hawaii last week they lost to, I think. Um, so the winner of this game punches their ticket to the Mountain West Championship game. So again, a lot on the line. And UNLV, huge turnaround. We saw them get stomped by Michigan. We're like, oh, maybe they're not going to be that good this year. And here they are. A one possession loss to Fresno State, and they beat some pretty good teams along the way. They steamrolled Wyoming last weekend. Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Air Force. This was my coin flip game of the week. I wanted to save the coin flip, but I couldn't make up a decision, so I flipped it. It went with Air Force. I was feeling good about Air Force, so that's where we went.
Slade.
Yeah, I think that UNLV is just kind of clicking on their cylinders that they need to right now, while Air Force is on a 2-game slide. I think that although Air Force hasn't lost at home, I think that they do this weekend. And sorry for whatever just hurt you, George.
My knee like popped. I'm going to go with Air Force at home. I expect them to have a huge bounce back after, again, struggling in the last 2 weeks. That they really want to kind of get it together and finish the season strong. Very high expectations a few weeks ago, maybe a possible New Year's Six Bowl. Now they're kind of a far cry from that. But at the end of the day, I really like this Air Force team. I expect them to get it back together on offense, get back to moving the ball down the field like they used to. I expect them to put a huge victory and punch that Mountain West championship ticket. Huge game in the Pac-12. Washington at Oregon. Washington looking to stay undefeated. Excuse me, Washington at Oregon State. Don't want to get that mixed up. Washington looking to clinch essentially their Pac-12 championship berth, stay undefeated, keep their playoff hopes alive. Oregon State looking to knock off another ranked team at home and keep their Pac-12 championship hopes alive as well. Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going with Washington. I've been very high on them all season, especially the last couple weeks. I've been vying for them to be in the college football playoff rankings. Although, like we talked about last week, they don't really matter until the last ones. I felt like they were one of the 4 best teams in the country, um, and I think they come away with this win. This should be a great game. In hindsight, it'll probably be game of the week, but as of right now, just scheduled to be a good game, and I'm going to enjoy watching it.
Slade.
I'm going with Oregon State here. I think, like I had talked about at the beginning of this, DJ Uyunglele
Good.
is I think that he's going to be the difference in this game. I think that his ability to not have a ton of pressure to have to throw the ball, that they're willing to run the ball because their offense was so used to running the ball. I think that that's the difference here. I think that we see the complete opposite with Washington in this game. Whenever their back's against the wall, they're going to be throwing 40-yard bombs down the field and hoping that that they get that. I also think that they got it wrong. I don't think Oregon State should be the favorite by a point in this game, seen as though they're 12-point underdogs to Oregon next week. But I think that they should have enough to get it done today, and I think that it shakes up the Pac-12.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Beavers as well. They just play exceptionally well at home. They've looked very good against all the ranked opponents they played at home this year. And Washington just hasn't given me confidence the last couple of weeks. Ever since that Oregon game, they've really struggled on both sides of the ball. Penix, he went through 2 really rough games. He kind of found his footing again the past couple of weeks. But the defense has been very ugly at times. And Oregon State is a very hungry team. They're still trying to keep their hopes alive. This is going to be a very raucous crowd. They're going to be really upset that College Game Day wasn't there today, and I think that's probably where Game Day should have gone. And also with Washington coming out and their coach said, we want all the noise and all this other stuff, and some of the things he said in that tweet, or I guess in that interview that got tweeted out, were just weird. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Oregon State. Next game we have is in the Big 12. Slade's Texas Longhorns are going to play Iowa State. Yeah, on the road, 8 p.m. on Fox. Slade or Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I got Texas. Iowa State, not that good. Texas, we had questions about them there for a couple weeks, but they're back to looking like a very good team. They're looking, even though they sit on the outside looking in, depending on how things fall, they're looking to keep their playoff hopes alive. So I got Texas in this.
Slade.
Yeah, I'm going with Texas as well. I think Iowa State is the game that if Texas is going to ruin all of their hopes and dreams, that this is the one, especially with it being on the road. But as we've seen at the beginning of the season, Iowa State's a bunch of cheaters. They're going to gamble and pick the under in this game, and that they get the spread, and it's not going to happen.
Slade wanted me to take Iowa State just so I don't jinx Texas. And so I took my pick out of the notes completely, so they don't know who I'm picking yet. I'm going to go with Iowa State. Give me the Cyclones at home. This has been a very determined team. And again, they control their own destiny in the Big 12 right now. If they win out, they are going to the Big 12 championship. There's a lot riding on this game. And again, a team that everybody dismissed at the beginning of the season. They went on the road to Ohio, not Ohio State, Ohio. They looked horrible in that game. Everybody said, okay, Cam was getting fired after the season. This team might only win 3 games again. And they've suddenly turned it around. They've looked very, very good at times. And also, Iowa State in Ames, Iowa is just, and I made a post about this yesterday, just seems to be a graveyard for ranked teams when they go there and play. Since Matt Campbell has been there, he's in his 8th year. 5 of the 7 previous years, they beat a ranked team at home. 2016, they didn't. In 2022, they did not. But you look at some of these teams they beat. Number 4, TCU, and number 6, West Virginia, 2 teams that had playoff hopes. Number 8, Oklahoma State, also had playoff hopes. And if they beat Baylor in that Big 12 title game, that everybody thinks they punched their ticket, and they kind of forgot about the Iowa State loss. And the one that always sticks out of my mind is in 2011 when number 2 Oklahoma State went there. And they were basically the BCS darlings. They were going to go and disrupt the SEC, kind of matchup that we ended up getting. They go on the road to Iowa State and they lose. So this is going to be a very interesting game and a lot of fun to watch later tonight. Next game we got is at 8:00 as well. This will be an ACC network. We have Syracuse at Georgia Tech. Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I got Georgia Tech. Syracuse, we tried to be high on them early in the season. That faltered relatively quickly. And I just think Georgia Tech's playing good football right now, and they're at home in prime time slot, even though not prime time as far as the TV views are going to go. But I got Georgia Tech.
Slade?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Georgia Tech. This is the game that I was kind of like really worried about, as Nick would say, coin flip game. But I am really nervous because I could see Schrader doing backflips and Georgia Tech's King throwing 3 interceptions. I mean, the dude has thrown 14 interceptions on the season. It's just a hit or miss with him. They play really good against good teams. They play really bad against bad teams. So, I mean, they lost to Bowling Green early in the season, but then they beat UNC. I don't know where this team stands, but I think they go 1-1 to end the season, and I don't see them beating Georgia. So I had to have them win here.
Yeah, they need one more win to get to a bowl game. And again, I think this is their last chance to do it. And like you said, Slade, and I brought this up last week, this has been one of the weirdest seasons in college football. They play extremely well against good opponents, and they play horrible when they play subpar opponents. But I think this is the game that eventually gets Dino Babers fired. That's going to be my hot take. I think Dino Babers gets fired this year, and I think this is going to kind of be the final nail in the coffin. And last but not least, our game of the week, huge implications in the American Championship race. We have SMU at Memphis. This will be noon on ESPN2. Nick, who do you got?
I got SMU. We did talk about it earlier. I think that SMU's defense is really going to be the difference maker in this game. Like I said, there's few key stops SMU's defense is definitely going to make. Is going to be the difference between this being a shootout till the end and this being a 10 to 14 point game in the fourth quarter.
Slade.
Yeah, I went with Memphis here. I think Memphis is able to really go 2-0 to end the season this weekend against SMU and then against Temple next weekend. A win this weekend jumps SMU in the AAC standings, and then they just kind of are on their own there, So I just think that rushing-wise, I think that Memphis is the better team. And like you had said, weather-wise, if that stays true, I think Memphis has the offense set for that type of weather.
Yeah. I'm going to go with SMU. I really feel like they have one of the best defenses in the country. I really like how they play on that side of the ball. I mean, we think back to that Oklahoma game when Oklahoma's offense was red hot and they held them to under 30 points. And I mean, they were in that game for the most part. And then they also kind of got blown out by TCU. But nonetheless, I really like how SMU's played ever since that TCU loss. They've been playing very well on both sides of the football. So I expect SMU to pick up a huge victory on the road today, and they kind of not necessarily punch the ticket because they still need to win out, but give themselves favorable odds to make the American Championship game. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Out of the Tunnel. As always, we thank you guys so much for joining us. Next week, all three of us are going to be together. Nick, don't get sick this time, so we can actually, make an episode together this year.
Not off to a great start.
No, but nonetheless, we're very excited to be able to do that next weekend and bring that to you. So hopefully, you guys all join us for that as well. Enjoy your week 12 of college football. Huge games across the country, all to set up another huge week of college football next weekend. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you guys in the next video.